So in this section, we will see scripting, which are used to perform a complex or repetitive task. So we have seen that we can apply several commands on the terminal, yes, and we can try writing them, yes, one by one, as we did here with find or with more complex commands. And that is fine if you are doing that only once, right? But if we are doing that many times and over several files, then that could be a tedious procedure. So that's why we can automate this task by writing the so-called batch scripts. They are very useful because in our HPC clusters at NAISS and in Sweden, we use a batch script to submit the jobs to the queues. That's why it's very important to learn about this. So let's try with an example. Yes, and here we can use any editor, so we are comfortable with. So we started by creating. I will move to the folder scripting. Yep, yep. And then I start by creating a script called my first .sh. It's a file. I use for an editor, but you can use Nano or whatever you like for an editor. And here I start with a first line. Then I type a relatively long command. And the file should be there. Then I use another command called change mode, and I will discuss what is that about in a few moments. So I type change mode, u plus x, and then my first dot sh. Yeah, and then I type this dot and slash my first dot sh, and here you see that that the file was created. Yes, called file underscore filter, and this file contains the output. Yes, contains the output of these two commands. Yes, grep and then wc. Sorry, it was output. Yes, here you see that first of all, grep created the command, the file underscore filter, and then wc took this uh, file and then send the output to the output.dat file. So basically, we have performed these two tasks. Yes, we wrote them in a file. Then we apply this up to now mysterious command change mode. And finally, we run the task by executing the file in this way. So I will go through the meaning of these lines. So you notice that in the first line, I wrote the command or the symbol, the pound and the exclamation mark, bin and bash. So this is called the shebang, and this instruct the script to search for the path of the bash shell. Yeah. The second line will search for the string ABCD in the file.dat and redirect the output to the file filter.dat. It's here. And finally, the third line will use the WC command, which outputs only the line numbers that are contained in file underscore filter. And finally, we print out the output.dat file. You see that we can automate our task by writing the commands in a batch script. Now we will go to the command that we used for making the file executable. This is called a change mode. And it allows us to change the permissions for files and directories. So if you type ls-la in some directory, you will see something like this. Yes, where here we have some letters, right? Then we have here the username, the group, and other details about the files. So the important information that we need for change mode is here in the first 10 columns, yes, where you list, yes, the information about the file. And these are the columns, yes, that are needed for change mode. So you will see that here there are 10 characters, and the first character refers to a standard file if it starts with a dash, as in this case, or it can also start with a D if it refers to a directory. So the next 3 lines refers to the user. The next 3 lines, the next 3 symbols, sorry, refer to the group, and the next 3 refer to other users in the system. And you can see that there are 3 possible permissions that these 3 groups can have. It could be reading, which allows the user or a group to view the file. Writing, it permits to write or modify the file. Or executing, which allows to execute the file or also view a subdirectory if the file is a directory. So this is a summary of what I said, right? And the important thing is how to change these permissions. As we saw before, that when I try to execute my first file, I use the command change mode u+x. So we can give permissions, yes, to the user, to the group, or to the other by adding this permission with the plus symbol. Yep. We can also withdraw the permissions with the minus symbol. So in this case, for instance, we are giving the user the permissions of reading, writing, and executing this a file or a directory. Yeah. If we want to withdraw these permissions or some of them, then we can do a change mode U minus RW or X. So that's why in this case that I showed you before for my script, let me clear this terminal. That's why here I executed change mode U plus X because when you create a file, in this case my first.txt, it doesn't have the execution permission. And if you try to execute that, it will give you an error. That's why I added the execution permission to my first file. And if you are curious, then you can search for the content of the file. And you can see that the file, my first file.sh, it has the reading, writing, and execution permissions for the user. Yes, that's why I can execute this file. So you can do something similar for the group and for the others in the system. Let me see. I have 3 more minutes. So this is a very basic example, and it's some predict. Yeah. So we are searching for some string in a file, and then we output these results to another file, and then count the lines in the output file. So we can make this task more flexible by using the command line arguments. So here I will copy the example, my first.sh, into another file abcd.sh, and then I will use the arguments that I can pass to the commands on the command line, and I will modify this by taking some arguments. Yeah. So instead of using a fixed value for the file that I want to explore, then I will take one argument. Yes, this $1 means the first argument of the command. Yeah. So then I can check if this file has the correct permissions count. So it means that it also has the execution permissions because I just copied that. And then I can pass, yes, some value to this count ABCD file. So I execute this count and pass the file name. So notice here that I don't need to write this file name inside the script because it is taken as an argument, the first argument. So then I can check so that the two files were written. So you see here, their output, yes, the output file is here, similar as before, it contains 2. So we can also add other arguments, and you can read more about this. So in this case, instead of searching for a fixed string, which was ABCD. You can pass also a second argument, right? Where you can provide the string that you want to the script, and then this will make the script more general, right? So that it's more flexible. So here are the possible outputs. You pass a file name, is the first argument, and then you pass a string that you want to search, and these values will be substituted in grep and then execute the task. So you see that you can make scripting more powerful, yes, by adding these command line arguments, and even more powerful if you introduce the wildcards. Commenting, you can add comments to your script, and notice here that there are some exceptions. The comments are symbolized with this dash symbol, yeah. But also there are some keywords reserved, yes, for bash, as in this case. This is the shebang. It is not a comment, yeah. It's interpreted by bash, yes, as a keyword. But if you write something different that is not part of the shell, yeah, then it's just a comment, and it's a good way to document your script. So this is a more advanced example, and you can try that later on. Okay, so I am done.